Okay, so I have this really funny story from when I was like 9 years old. I was playing on Barbie.com one day, and I guess I was over the normal games that they had on the American version of the Barbie.com website. So I decided to play on different language settings to see what Barbie games they offered in different countries. This is just what you did when you were bored back then, I guess, or this is what I did when I was bored, rather. Um, and so on this particular day, I'm playing in the Swedish setting, and I play this like visual novel storybook type game. And at the end of the story, I just see in big bold letters just the word slut, just in big bold letters on Barbie.com, a family friendly website, slut. And I'm just like, oh, okay. Now, initially, I had heard the word in the movie Mean Girls when I was watching it with my sister on the big TV one day. They say the word slut in Mean Girls a lot. So I was like, oh, that must be a bad word. I don't know what it means, but it must be a bad word. But then I saw it on Barbie.com on a different day. So I was like, oh, slut can't be a bad word if it was on Barbie.com. I guess slut means the end in Swedish. I mean, it makes no sense to call a girl the end, but I guess that's what it means. So if it was on Barbie.com, that must mean it's not a bad word and I can say it. All right, then, that makes sense. So, cut to a specific period of time later. I don't know if it was days or weeks or what, but I had a friend over at my house one day, and we were playing with toys, and I guess we just started talking to each other, and we got really angry and aggressive over some girls at school that we didn't like. So we decided to let out some aggression by talking mad shit about these girls. And I guess at some point I just shouted, "This person's a slut." And my friend looks at me and goes, "What does that word mean?" So I tell her, "I learned this on Barbie.com. It means the end in Swedish." And she's like, "Makes sense to me." Now I want you to paint a picture in your head for a moment of these two 8 to 9 year old children sitting on the floor of a bedroom with like toys everywhere and just going, "This person's a slut." Because that's exactly what this friend and I did. We repeatedly were calling different fourth grade girls that we didn't like sluts because we didn't know what slut meant. My older sister is probably in her room or something and can just hear us shouting, "This person's a slut!" and laughing. And she's like, "What?" So she gets out of her room, storms over to mine, and flings open the door and goes, "What did you just say?" And I'm like, "Oh, I said this person's a slut." And she's like, "You know you can't say that word, right? That's a bad word." And I'm like, "No, it's not. It's on Barbie.com. It can't be a bad word if it was on Barbie.com." And she's like, "I don't believe you. I'm telling mom." So my friend goes home because, she doesn't want to be a part of this. And later, my mom and dad come home from shopping or doing whatever it was they were doing. They were running some kind of errand. But the second they walk in the door, my sister runs over to them and is like, "Mom, Dad, they said slut." And they look at me and they're like, "You said slut? Where did you even learn that word? Like that's a bad word. Why are you cussing? Like what's going on here? Where did you learn that?" So I say, "Well, the first time I heard it was in the movie Mean Girls when I was watching it with my sister on the big TV. But I figured it was a bad word, so I didn't say it. But then the other day I was playing on Barbie.com and I saw the word there. So I figured it can't be a bad word if it was on Barbie.com, so I started saying it. I didn't know it was bad." And my parents look at me and go, "There's no way you saw that word on Barbie.com. Like, I don't believe that for a second. You need to tell us the truth." And I'm like, "No, I'm serious. Here, I'll show you." So they're like, "Okay, then show us." So I go to the family computer and I go on Barbie.com and I turn it to the Swedish setting. My parents walk over and see me doing this and they're like, "Why are you putting it in the Swedish setting?" And I'm like, "You'll see." And so I go to the storybook game that I initially played where I saw the word. And I played the game as normal. And I get to the part where we see the word in big bold letters on the screen. And my parents look at it and go, "Well, I'll be damned. I guess it really was on Barbie.com." And then they thought about it for a moment and were like, "Oh, oh, it must not be pronounced slut. It's in the Swedish setting, so it must be slut, and that means the end in Swedish, and slut means something different over here. Oh, okay, that makes sense. So they look at me and they tell me, okay, listen, they're not saying slut, they're saying sloot. But either way, you shouldn't be saying that word because it's a bad word. And they proceed to not tell me what it means, and they're just like, it's a bad word. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess if it's a bad word, then that makes sense. I can't say it anymore. It just means something different in Swedish, I guess. So, years later, cut to years later, I'm in high school now, and I'm just chilling in my room one day on the computer, and my best friend at the time was doing a Duolingo lesson to learn how to speak Swedish. And she randomly DMs me, asking, why did Duolingo just ask me what the word slut means? And it unlocked the memory of the Barbie.com situation. So I very simply go, oh, it means the end, and it's pronounced slut. And she goes, wait, really? So chooses the end, and Duolingo's like, that's the right answer. She messages me again and is like, how the fuck did you know that? So I tell her the exact same story that I just told you guys, and she's like, oh my god, that is beautiful. So, there you go. That is how I learned at the age of 9 that, slut is the end in Swedish. You learn something new every day.